Hi, so tonight I'm going to walk you guys through my project files, workflow, and process for the Women in Film Explainer video I made last month. So first things first, I already sort of showed you guys this deck the client sent to us, but I wanted to go over it again just to make this video make a little bit more sense. So the clients presented this to us over the phone, and it's basically just like an overview of what they wanted us to make. And I think it's pretty clear. I mean, give new meaning to the industry phrase for your consideration so that next time studios are hiring, they consider hiring a woman. So pretty straightforward. They included a rough script that they wanted us to use, which isn't always the case, but in this case they did. And they included some reference for how they wanted the video to look, and this is like some things they wanted to include, I guess. I don't really know. But yeah, and then in addition to that, they also included some of their branding materials that we had to use in the final project. And then I think there's just like some extra stuff in here. So this is pretty much a very typical client brief. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, but that's kind of it. So then next, Kelly, who is Andor's design creative director, worked with Kendra, who is the writing creative director, on the 2-column script. Kendra didn't really have that big of a role in this project just because the script is pretty much exactly what the client already wrote for us. In other scenarios, Kendra has to do a lot more work up front to write the scripts for us, and then Kelly comes in and writes the visuals for this 2-column script. So like you can see that like here it says, you know, for your consideration for Best Actor, Best Director, and Best Film. And then Kelly wrote what she wanted to be on screen during these parts. So it says, a lineup of award statues appear one at a time, an Emmy, an Oscar, a Golden Globe. The label Best Actor animates above the Emmy statue, and then it goes on for the other statues. And we shared this with the client just so sometimes, you never really know, sometimes clients respond better to words, sometimes they respond better to visuals. So in addition to this, I was also brought on to start making style frames for the film, which is what they were calling it. And Kelly started making pencil boards, so this project kind of hit a weird time because Kelly and Kendra, who just so happened to be married, were about to go on vacation. So before they left, Kelly wanted to make sure we had some of her creative direction because I was scheduled to start making the storyboard, and the animator I was working with Tara was scheduled to start animating while Kelly and Kendra were out. So all of that to say is usually pencil boards come a little bit later in the process, but this was sort of a weird timeline. Anyways, so in this deck, we first started listing bullet points of what we heard from the call that we had with the client, and then we laid out what they should expect from this deck that I'm showing you right now. And then we get right into the design directions. The first one was more of like a photo-based direction. It was supposed to be like collagey and textural and feel like everything was made up of photographs and nothing was really like its own image. So that's that one. And then the second one is supposed to feel more like painterly and cell animated and it's like softer, I guess. So yeah, and then like I'll admit that those really aren't two very distinct design directions. Usually, like let's see if I can find one. Usually design directions are a little bit more different. So this is a project that I was working on in another studio, and we have the first direction here, which is like really graphic and loud and bold, and then we have the second direction I made here, which is like a lot softer and quieter, and yeah, like they're just two really different, and usually that's more how it is. But in this case, the clients had a pretty specific set of references that they wanted, so we didn't really have that much room. Anyways, so the pencil boards Kelly drew in Photoshop, and Kelly's like a pretty particular creative director, so these were basically exactly what she wanted to see once I started making storyboards, which isn't always the case depending on the creative director you're working with. And she even included like some little animation directions once we started getting to that point. And so yeah, that's pretty much it for like a first posting for a client. And then after that, the client from this deck picked a design direction, which was the second one. And then I started making storyboards, while the animator I mentioned before, Tara, started making like a boardomatic, or sometimes it's called an animatic, it's the same thing, set to Scratch Video. Our producer Jen recorded and laid it over a few different tracks that the client wanted to try out. So here is the storyboards that I made from that design direction based off of Kelly's pencil boards. So pretty close to what Kelly has here. I kind of just brought them to life a little bit. And yeah, and then so here is one of the boardomatics set to, this one's a Lizzo track.
For your consideration, 3 words Hollywood can't get enough of. You know, for your consideration for Best Actor, Best Director, Best Film. Hollywood, what if we considered that for every 4 men behind the scenes of a film, there's only 1 woman? Or that scripts are written by 7 times more men than women? Or that for every 10 male directors, there's 1.3 women, and only 0.5% of directors are women of color. Only 2% of movies in 2019 had a female cinematographer. Also for your consideration, women still make 80 cents for every dollar men earn. Wait, seriously? Even me? So why consider this now? After a recession, men are nearly twice as likely to be hired than women. For your consideration, women, not for an award, for a job. If you're hiring, consider a woman. Hire her back.
So boardomatics are good because it gives you a sense of timing once you start animating. So this one had to be a minute long, so we had to make sure it fit in that runtime, just because a lot of ad buys you can't really go over, so it's important that you stay within your time limit. And boardomatics are good for seeing, okay, that takes too long, that doesn't go fast enough. Wow, we have a minute or 30 seconds left over, or oh my god, we went 30 seconds over. So that's why we make boardomatics. And it looks like they did 3 different audio options, and then Tara started doing animation tests. So
for Best Actor, Best Director, Best Film, hire her back.
And we sent that all to the client too. And then we had to go through a few different rounds of revisions with them because they didn't like this thing. So the mountain, they wanted the actual Hollywood Hills sign to say that, and then there was like problems with using photos of real directors, and then they were like, okay, we can't use real people. So I had to try out a few different solutions for that, and then I think finally Yeah, so I think these are like pretty much, oh, and they also wanted to see like this thing set up differently. And they included this part that they cut. So like we had to go back and forth for a little while with the clients before we got it settled down. And then I think this is just like different audio options again of the Boardomatics. And then and then we started doing work in progress animation postings for the client. So here I'm gonna play.
For your consideration. 3 words Hollywood can't get enough of. You know, for your consideration for Best Actor, Best Director, Best Film. Hollywood, what if we considered that for every 4 men behind the scenes of a film, there's only 1 woman? Or that scripts are written by 7 times more men? Or that for every 10 male directors, there's 1.2 women, and only 0.8% are women of color? Only 5% of movies in 2019 had a female cinematographer. Also consider, for every dollar men make, women earn only 82 cents. Wait, still? Even me? So why consider this now? After a recession, men are nearly twice as likely to be hired than women. Okay, you get it. For your consideration. Women. Not for an award, for a job. If you're hiring, consider a woman.
So that animation is pretty rough, but you can see, so at this point, it's only been about a week since we started the project, and we're about halfway through, so we have another week to finish it. And so 2 days later, we did another animation work in progress posting.
For your consideration. 3 words Hollywood can't get enough of. You know, for your consideration for Best Actor, Best Director, Best TV Series. Hollywood, what if we considered that for every 4 men behind the scenes of a film, there's only 1 woman? Or that scripts are written by 7 times more men? Or that for every 10 male directors, there's 1.2 women, and only 0.08 are women of color? Only 5% of movies in 2019 had a female cinematographer. Also consider, for every dollar men make, women earn only 82 cents. Wait, still? Even me? So why consider this now? After a recession, men are nearly twice as likely to be hired than women. Okay, you get it. For your consideration. Women. Not for an award, for a job. If you're hiring, consider a woman.
So obviously we got a lot done in just 2 days, and on top of that, the part in the middle here,
For your
this part with the hands coming in, so that's my hand and that's my boyfriend's hand that I shot like this in my apartment. So it wasn't really that fancy. And then, so after that, so you can, like, in that work in progress, you could see that most of the animation was blocked in. And so the next posting, which was the next day, which were the last looks before we posted it for ship approval, which basically means this is it, we're not making any more changes. So between this posting and this posting, we were sort of just like cleaning up little things in that animation. So it's pretty subtle, but there's just like tiny little details that, like, things were kind of messy in the last one, and we just kind of like cleaned it up and smoothed things out and made it look a little bit nicer.
For your consideration. 3 words Hollywood can't get enough of. You know, for your consideration for Best Actor, Best Director, Best TV Series. Hollywood, what if we considered that for every 4 men behind the scenes of a film, there's only 1 woman? Or that scripts are written by 7 times more men? Or that for every 10 male directors, there's 1.2 women, and only 0.08 are women of color? Only 5% of movies in 2019 had a female cinematographer. Also consider, for every dollar men make, women earn only 82 cents. Wait, still? Even me? So why consider this now? After a recession, men are nearly twice as likely to be hired than women. Okay, you get it. For your consideration. Women. not for an award, for a job. If you're hiring, consider a woman.
So after this posting, then we posted it for ship approval, which basically means, like I said, this is it. You don't get to change anything else. And then that was like 2 weeks after we started, so it was a pretty solid deadline. This one was just something else that they needed. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's sort of how Andor works as a studio in the studio process. Also, so like in between all of these postings, we would get notes back from our client, and the way that Andor organizes them is they keep them all in like a Google Doc like this, so you can see like, this is our internal feedback doc, and so this is from the call that we had with the client. This is like notes Kelly had for me. That was my old Andor email. These were notes Kelly had for me that I crossed off as I made them, and like things to do, and this goes out through the whole thing. So yeah, we also have one that's feedback and notes from client. So yeah, that's kind of it. And then after we posted for ship approval, the client sent it to an audio house to get mixed with the actual VO and a music track, and then that was it. It was up. It was done. Okay, so I wanted to just really quickly show you guys how I work in Photoshop when I make storyboards. Usually this is how I have everything set up, where each one of these is a different PSD file. Let's look at my Finder so you can see. So each one's a different PSD file. That way when I'm browsing, I can go through them really quickly like this to see what I'm looking at. And I can have them all open like this to see what I'm looking at. And like, let's say I was going to make a change on this one, I can just blow it up and do whatever I need to do. So yeah, I mean, like, here's some of the textures that I said I used. So here's one of the paper scans I made. That's just sort of like a shitty way. I painted this on and then recolored it. And then there's just some light effects on top. So like I said, this is how my process has changed a lot since college, because before I would have this all as one big Illustrator file, have each one be a different artboard and sort of work that way. But I think even like to get this look that I'm doing in these frames, so like I'll blow this up again, I wouldn't be able to add this light effect the way that it is in Illustrator without it being really annoying. Here's all my type. I wouldn't be able to have this paper texture without it being annoying, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to draw or paint on these paint with this brush the way that it is in Illustrator. So that's just, again, another case for Photoshop. And I wanted to show you how I work. Okay, so now I want to show you guys the project file for Women in Film. So the other animator I was working with, Tara, is a lot more senior than I am, so she does some things that I don't know how to do, or don't really do myself. So I think like she's using proxies for all of these pre-comps, just so things RAM preview easier. That's what this little square next to here means, but I don't usually do that. Anyways, so this is sort of how a normal After Effects file is set up for a project like this. So we have our Women in Film master, which is like all of our different shots put together with our mix, our audio mix. So this is just sort of how we see everything together. But then in here we have each shot labeled appropriately for like the numbers that they were in the storyboard. So shot 1 through 5 is here, frames 6 through 8 is here, and so on. And then once you get into those, let's do one that I worked on. So I worked on this one. So here you can see proxy enabled. I don't want that. Okay, so I'll take it off so now we can see what's actually going on in this file. This is the shot. It's kind of heavy because there's a lot of, like, I'm using a camera in here which has a blur, and there's like a lot of effects happening. So the way that this is set up, you can see it's not very clean, but there's also not so much happening that it's confusing. So I have my camera null, which basically I parent my camera to the null because I don't know why. I mean, that's how my motion teacher taught me how to do it, and that's just the way that I do it. Assuming there's some reason why it's better, but to be honest, I really can't tell you why. But anyways, so like I don't actually animate the camera at all. I just animate the null, which you like, here's just like two really simple moves, which is this first like zoom in. Oops, I'm gonna mute it. Which is this first zoom in and then this zoom out. So easy. And then on top of that, I have, so this light leaks, which is just like a subtle effect. I have a flicker stock thing that is just making it like the light flicker like that. And then I have a grain, and there's like some red giant plugins, lighting plugins that I'm using, and then there's like another light video, and then there's some noise. So there's a lot of textural stuff happening on top of this, but after you get past that, it's pretty simple. So I have the light in the back, the light in the front, circle man 1, parented to man 1, circle man 2, parented to man 2, man 3, and blah blah blah, and then my background. So it's really simple actually, and this is how my projects usually look. But then, so like this one I didn't make, the other animator worked, and hers is just like a little bit, well, first of all, this shot's a little bit more complicated because she had to do all of these little for your considerations, and then the ending. So like this is that whole really complicated middle part all right in here, and there's a lot of stuff happening right here, just keeps going. And then there's the background below there. But then other than that, I think she has there's so much. I think she has like this beginning part pre-comped in here somewhere. So yeah, so she has this whole thing separated. And within this one shot, so it's probably in, yeah, so her shot 1, she has that pre-comped in here, which is inside of there. And this one's pretty simple. So she has a null that does like the scale off, which is over here, which is that move. And then the for your consideration. And then just some of the type layers that she didn't convert from the Photoshop. She's using an expression null to do the same thing that we did for our blobs in the last tutorials, but so she's just controlling everything with this one expression null. But other than that, it's again still pretty simple. There's like kind of a lot happening, but it's also like not the cleanest. It's just like nobody's perfect, and she's a really good animator. And she's pretty organized as an animator too, and even the most organized people still can't help their projects getting a little bit crazy. And so yeah, we kind of just put everything in there together, and again, look at, it's like the same file structure I use with you guys. So we have our master, which is everything together. That should be in there. And then we have each of our shots that are in here as its own pre-comp, and then within the pre-comps we have folders that sort of correspond with those shots where we have everything organized and that doesn't get confused. And then we have, so our footage, everything separated into different folders for like Illustrator files. We have our audio, some of the light leaks we're using, some of like the videos we're using as texture, PSDs, etc. So yeah, it's not really that crazy, but I think it's helpful to see how these things are set up. And yeah, that's pretty much it.